Welcome to Forest.chat, where we talk about individual endeavour in Western Australia, what it takes, what it means, and how you do it. I'm your host, Paul Vandermeer, and in today's episode, we're talking with Tony Tucknott about designing mountain bike courses. Tony started designing the course for the Dwelling Up 100 event around 2007 and has been in charge of that course ever since. Welcome to Forest.chat, Tony.
Thanks very much, Paul.
Tony, designing mountain bike courses, what is that?
Well, I guess started out as a little sideline thing as part of the Perth Mountain Bike Club, and that was just something that we were into as a volunteer job. And then you sort of go, okay, well, I'll put on a race. Where are you putting the race on? So then I go and design a course for that race, and they were predominantly, and still are, cross-country races, or what's known as XCO, so cross-country, the Olympic format. They sort of range between 4 and 6 kilometres long. And then that really evolved into putting on bigger events, and then Dwelling Up 100 is sort of the main one. That's the main one that we do like on an annual basis. Like this is going to be our 18th year doing the Dwelling Up 100. And interestingly, also help with the Cape to Cape mountain bike race now as well, because a local company, a guy you probably know through your rally days, Bill Hayes, him and Megan, Event Matrix, they bought the Cape to Cape and have now run it as a WA entity for 2 years, and this will be their third year running it this year, which is also going to be their 18th year of running Cape to Cape. Well, it'll be the 18th running of Cape to Cape.
Yes, we've had Bill on this podcast as well. We talked about a different facet of his life in motorsport.
Yeah.
So you mentioned there the XCO, the Cross Country Olympic. What does that mean to a course?
So it's kind of, it's sort of where mountain biking, I guess to a certain degree, and I'd get arguments against this, but it's sort of where mountain biking really started. It's like a circuit race. In fact, there was a World Cup on last night at Lenzerheide in Switzerland, and we've previously visited Lenzerheide for World Championships over there. And fortunately, like my son was racing at the time, and my daughter's raced World Champs as well in XCO. But so XCO is basically a short circuit between 4 and 6 kilometres long, where different categories and different grades do different laps. So when we set them up for Perth Mountain Bike Club, and we can either run, depending on the race, we'll either have age groups or we'll have A, B, C, D, E grade. And then those grades obviously do different amount of laps, which then that is part of their race. So different age groups, different speeds, like for elite, for example, they will have a time that they're sort of supposed to race for, and then what we have to do is work out how many laps it will take to give that time base of racing. Excellent format, really, really difficult. But look, you may not know, but there's quite a lot of different disciplines in mountain biking. Like, so for example, we would call the Dwelling Up 100 is a marathon because it's quite long, and pretty much anything that's 40 kilometres upwards, 40, 50 Ks, from there upwards is considered a marathon, so cross-country marathon, XCM. Cross-country Olympic is much shorter, so it's going to be an hour to an hour and a half long race. And then we also have Gravity Enduro, which is very strong in Western Australia, where they get timed on multiple descents, and they either get a shuttle back up to the top of the hill, and then they get timed down, or they have to ride back up. They might have to ride up for a couple of their times, and they get shuttles up the rest of the time. And downhill is also quite popular again now as well. It sort of went through a bit of a lull, but it's really popular now too, especially in WA. And there's quite a crossover between the Gravity Enduro and downhill, and there's also a bit of a crossover between Gravity Enduro and cross country. So when we're planning the calendar, there's a lot of effort goes into trying not to get clashes between any of them. And that's becoming more and more difficult each year.
With a growing sport like mountain biking, it's not a surprise that it becomes more difficult. So you've mentioned three different series there, is that right?
Yeah, so downhill is, that's just proper one run. It's all based on the qualifying, and then they get to do their final race run. Really exciting, really technical. It all comes down to like basically 3 minutes, and so they have to put it all together in 3 minutes. Gravity Enduro, they might have six shorter runs, so they do 6 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute runs over the course of a day. Our cross country, as I said, they'll, between an hour and a half racing. But then when we go to the Dwelling Up 100, we've got four distances at the Dwelling Up 100. We've got, depending on the year, so this year it's 20 Ks, but it's between 15 and 20. We have a 40K race, 60 to 70K race, and then we have the 100 as the name implies.
And that also ran as a World Championship event, is that right?
So it was a Masters World Championships. So basically now there was a little bit of confusion with this because we were under the impression, because Masters in Australia start at the age of 30, but believe it or not, still fairly young, but you qualify as a Master at the age of 30 years old. So we thought we were having a Masters World Championships from 30 years old and upwards. But as it turned out, the UCI or whoever it was who set those rules said, no, it's only from 35 years and upwards for that. And so Dave Budge from the event team, he actually came up with a great idea and concept that we have it as a Oceania Championships for those up to 35 years old. Well, anyone can race it, but for the younger group. So we've now had that for 3 or 4 years, the Oceania Championships there as well, and Oceania is effectively anyone in the Oceanic region can come and race it for a proper Oceanic title. My daughter actually won the Elite Oceania at Dwelling Up last year, which was pretty cool.
Oh, that's amazing. Runs in the family. You did mention that your son also rides. He went over for the World Championships there as well. So
yeah, so he's gone. Both Reese and Sarah have competed at XCO World Championships, and Reese, as I'm just in Canberra at the moment, and we fly back tonight, but I've been over helping them Reese and his new wife renovate their house. And Reese he normally comes back and races Dwelling Up 100 when they haven't been away for World Champs, and he's also come over and won that as well, which was really cool.
And you had an interesting story about how the Dwelling Up 100 course came together.
So going back to, and my recollection was 2007, I thought the last Rally Australia was in Perth. Now, I could be wrong. I could be wrong with that year, but it was certainly around that time. And myself and another good mate of mine, Pete Millard, we went down to Dwelling Up to watch the very last, this is going to be it, last Rally Australia is coming to Perth. And so we rode our mountain bikes from Dwelling Up and went down south through Murray Valley and through all the trails down there, and just went, this is just amazing. And as well as getting to watch the last rally and learn all of the trails down there, came up with the idea on that day about having a 100-kilometre mountain bike race down there. So now if it wasn't 2007, it was 2006. But anyway, around that time. So that might have been about August. And then in the summer, so in the January, early the next year, so I think maybe 2008, we went down and then rode a course that we thought would suit. So we had a loop on the south side and a loop on the north side of town. We went and rode these courses, and then I started putting the whole Dwelling Up 100 together and went, yep, this is going to happen, got a good course. And then I've put all these applications in, and then everything kept snowballing and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I thought, well, my real passion for it's putting all of the course together, and I need a lot more daytime hours. So I approached a mate of mine then at the time, which was Dave Budge, and he had a company called the Event Team. And so I approached Dave Budge from the Event Team and said, look, Dave, I've got this event and, really keen to make it happen. And I had a page of ideas that are ran by Dave, and he was super keen to get involved. And he said, I can remember him saying at the time, he said, look, we get approached by people all the time to run events. And, like a lot of them aren't worth looking at. He said, but I'm really keen to get involved in this. And we've now been doing it this is coming up in 3 months' time, coming up our 18th year of running this event together. And it works really well. I look after all of the trails, the courses, the maps, putting all that together, trying to improve it from the year before, look after the traffic management plan and, road crossings, marshal points, all that sort of stuff that we need to on the ground. And then Dave and his team look after all of the logistics for the event hub, all of the entries, all of the marketing of the event. And, they do it. They're professionals at it. And that's what you need to run an event at this level. The same as the Cape to Cape. So basically the event team have the biggest one-day mountain bike race in Western Australia, and Event Matrix, Bill and Megan from Event Matrix, they have the biggest stage race in WA in the Cape to Cape, and I help them with that as well.
So when you go out to survey a course, what skills are you pulling in to achieve that?
That's a good question, actually. The honest truth is most of the surveying starts at home on the computer with mapping programs. So even though you know all of the trails and you think, I've got to get from point A to point B, and how can we do that? And I'm also a big one for keeping it fresh all the time. Like we look at every year, there's only been one Dwelling Up 100 that was the same as the previous year, and that was mainly because we had a lot of storm damage more than anything else. But what we try to do every year is make improvements from the year before to iron out any little things that had happened the year before that you may not have even came back in the feedback. It might have been a passing comment that someone said, oh yeah, we got stuck at this point. And I kind of go, well, I didn't think anyone would get stuck at that point. And so then from there, you just work out how you can improve it for the following year so that people don't get held up or stuck. And we've kind of worked on that fairly hard for this year as well.
To me, I see a little bit of a chicken and egg. If you're on the computer looking at routes and that sort of thing, but you've also been out there riding them, I gather the tracks of what you've ridden relate to what you're looking at on the computer?
So once again, that's a good question, good point. So plan it on the computer, plan it on the mapping, and the mapping programs have evolved now as well. Really interesting. My main go-to one now is one that's called Ride with GPS, which is an American program. It's so good, it's so user-friendly. Yeah, anyone can open it up. There's really great planning ability with it, so you can actually create your own maps. But the big thing for me is, we've created this course. This is where we want to go, but how does it ride? So then you need to go and ride the course. And I mean, like ride it properly, like you're going and doing it exactly as it is. And then what happens? You talk about that chicken and egg. Then we get what we call a clean map of that course. So while you've planned it and mapped it on a computer, you then go and ride it. And I'll often go to it's not really trouble because they're good mates, but I'll often take mates with me, but to get their feedback on what they think, guys who ride events like that. And then you go, okay, so what do you think of this? What do you think of this idea? This is what we're going to do. And you get really good feedback from people doing that as well. So you're not just relying on your own thoughts. You're trying to engage your mates to, give them a good ride. They get a bit of a sneak peek of it. And then you go, well, how does that work? And they go, yep, that's good. No, I don't like this, don't like going that way. So we can change things accordingly.
That's a really good way to do it. You're getting feedback on the fly almost about the course.
Yes, exactly. But one of those things that happened last year, which was, I sort of look and think was quite funny, I asked a couple of mates of mine, and they're, to their own, they're in the half to 3/4 of the field, so they're not front runners, but they're great guys, good riders, happy to be there. And there was one particular obstacle on this track, and I said, look, hey guys, go and ride this on your own at your own pace. And what do you think of it? And yep, it's no problem. No problem at all. And so I went, oh, well, that's good. Right, we're going to use that track in that direction. Yeah, it was a problem. Turns out, one person stops on it, and then it causes a 10-person bottleneck behind them. And so once again, I look at all that stuff and just go, yep, we need to fix that little problem for next year. Improve. It's just constant improvement is what we're looking at. And what that does is it keeps it fresh for the riders who are coming in. And so that's why these events last, is because you've actually got a different course you're going to. You imagine if you just went and said, oh, we're going to just go and ride Dwelling Up 100 again. It's been exactly the same for 18 years. Well, no one would want to come back. But because we changed the course and people know they're in for something new every year, then I think that keeps it fresh and exciting for people as well. And it's also, Paul, it's a massive challenge. To go and ride 100 Ks on a mountain bike, and especially there's always a chance of rain at that time of year, it's a big day out, and it's very rewarding for those people doing it.
It's very interesting. I've not done a lot of mountain biking myself. I do have one in the shed, and I went out with a friend. I used to do motorcycle trials back in the 80s, and so I had the riding skills on a motorbike, so I understand what I need to do. And then after that, I went into car rallying, and you understand about getting along a course in a shortest possible time, that sort of thing. And then once I got to doing a bit of mountain biking, we were only around the Wambenja trails up in Collie, on the simplest of them. And you immediately get the combination of both of those sports wrapped up into one. It's a really engaging thing to do. It's quite amazing.
It's so good when you can combine. And like we talk to a lot of roadies who come over, and they'll try and take on mountain biking, but most of the time, especially when they're new at it, they can't use the power they've got on the road bike. They can't use that on the mountain bike because they don't have the skill base to actually use all that power. But my goodness, when they develop their skill base and they can use their power, then you don't see which way they went.
Yeah, and also people who build up through cross-country and mountain biking also have great bike handling skills when they get to things like Tour de France and that sort of thing as well, don't they?
They do, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you look at probably the best example of that's Tom Pidcock. So he's a young English guy coming up. So he's world champion on the mountain bike, and he's racing these big tours as well.
Yeah, we're watching Giro d'Italia at the moment, and Tom Pidcock's name has come up. We've been on to a lot of the SBS footage.
Oh, yeah.
Tony, what does it mean to you, your family, or the community that you're able to design these great courses?
Typically, by the time the events come around, you've put so much work into it, you're kind of thinking, wow, is this all worth it? By the time you get there. But then when you see the riders on the day, and it all comes together on the day, and you see how much it means to the riders, to anyone there, whether they're doing it for the first time or whether they're there for the 18th time, whether they're doing the 20K, the 40, the 70 this year, or the 100, everyone's still putting in the same amount of effort, and regardless of the distance they're doing, and they're still getting that reward for their efforts. And when you see the riders enjoy it and what they get out of it, that's what makes it worthwhile for us as event organisers. That's the most rewarding thing of the whole thing, is actually seeing how much people enjoy it. And look, at the end of the day, that's what you do it for. You don't do it for recognition or gratitude or any of that sort of stuff. You do it to go, oh yeah, those riders really enjoyed, what we've put together for them.
That's really how they express their gratitude, isn't it?
Oh, it is 100%. Yeah, and when you know you we always say as well, you can never please all of the people all of the time, but you certainly do your best to try and please them. That's for sure.
And you've brought your family along with mountain biking as well?
Yeah, we all ride, and been quite blessed that my wife is quite a good mountain biker as well, and she's helped. She's only raced one. No, she's raced two dwelling up 100s because she raced world champs as well, the Masters world champs. She typically helps us out at all the events, or helps out with trail maintenance, which is another big part of what we do, and that's quite rewarding on its own as well. The trail maintenance, and we've got a small group that we work with who we get the trails prepared and ready to race, which is another thing that we sort of feel from an event point of view. And it doesn't matter whether it's Dwelling Up 100, a Perth Mountain Bike Club race, or Cape to Cape. We sort of feel if you're charging people to come and ride trails, I think we've got an obligation to make sure those trails are in good condition. And from someone who goes and races a number of other races because we enjoy it, you look at how other people do or don't prepare trails, or do or don't mark out their races, and you learn from those events when you go and do them. Like, for example, myself and my wife this year went in March, and we went with a bunch of other good friends from Perth, and we went and did an event in New Zealand called the Volcanic Epic, which is a 5-day stage race over there. And there were some things they did really well and some things they didn't do so well. But, we come back from them, and you learn from those events, because you go, and I think it's part of our learning as well. So when we go and do the trail maintenance, my wife comes along and helps, my young blokes and Sarah. In fact, we've got trails named after them down there that they've helped with maintenance and whatever on. So that's pretty cool as well. But my wife is newly retired, so she may find that she's doing a fair bit more trail maintenance this year than she's previously done.
Got to keep fit somehow.
Yeah, that's right.
So what's involved in trail maintenance then? Because when my tiny bit of experience with mountain biking, it's not like you can drive a vehicle in and get up to some of these places in order to smooth them out or burn them up or
Look,
whatever it is you have to
yeah,
do.
no, so that also a good point. Like most of the time, like for dwelling up, we know the area well enough that there's access to some of those points. Yeah, you're going to have to walk. We've got a big blower that we take and we clean the trails with. But there's a couple of things I really hate when I go to an event, and that is being hit in the face with overhanging branches, or leaf litter, being hit in the arms with that sort of stuff, not having lines of sight around a corner, and having sticks on the trail that will go in your derailleur and ruin your driveline. So what we try and do is make sure that we clear all the overhang. We're not going to get hit in the face, not going to get hit in the arms. We're not going to have a whole bunch of crap on the trails. That might be 12 months of accumulation of leaf litter. We try and clean out all of the water drainage so that the trails aren't left waterlogged and that water doesn't just sit on the trail so you're not riding through a mud pit. We try and clear all the sticks off the trail so that they're not going to go in your derailleur and, cost people now $500 or $600 for a new derailleur. So there's a fair bit that goes into it. But the really cool thing with all that is, whether it's in Pemberton like we just did for a Perth Mountain Bike Club race, or it's at Cape to Cape in the 4 stages that we do down there, or whether it's for the Dwelling Up 100, then we still try and use the same approach so that people go out there and they can enjoy those trails and enjoy it without having a mechanical issue that could be avoided.
That's interesting. And over 100 kilometres of course, that takes a few hours for a regular person to ride, I would imagine. That would be a significant amount of effort to get around a course before an event and clean it up like that.
So it's months and months of work that can be ruined by one big storm that's happened to us before.
Wow.
Yeah, literally months and months it takes, because there's only so much you can do, and typically it will be in 1 or 2 kilometre segments that we're doing the trail maintenance. Because it's quite a time-consuming thing, especially if you've got a blower pack on your back and you've got a fire rake in your hand and you're trying to clear out water drains, you're trying to clear overhang and blow and clean the trail. And sometimes it takes a couple of passes over those trails to actually clean them up properly. Yeah, it's a big job.
That's amazing that you can do that. I know in car rallying they have people course clearing and that sort of thing, and that seems to be quite a good community aspect to some of the events as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
One thing we haven't talked too much about, or you mentioned that you do it, and that is the permitting side of things. How deeply do you get into that?
Not as much now because the event team typically put in the applications to most. So pretty much what I do is I'll put a traffic management plan together for where we need traffic management. I'll work with the traffic management people. I worked a fair bit with Water Corp last year for some different things, and I work with DBCA for the trails that what we want to use and we need approvals for, and can we use this in this direction and can we go there, etc. Whereas Dave's crew and the event team, they look after all of that side of the applications, approvals, with all of the different shires and different departments that there's Shire, there's there's DBCA, there's Water Corp, there's tourism, there's DLGCA, so there's a whole bunch of different things that they need to go through, and that's what a lot of people don't realise about running events. People go, oh yeah, I can just run an event, like it's even from a Perth Mountain Bike Club, just small club. I put together to try and encourage and new people coming on wanting to put on some races. So I put a bit of a checklist together for, okay, this is just a checklist that we need to run a Perth Mountain Bike Club race. And it's 3 pages long. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure that's going to encourage people to do it or whether it's going to put them off. But it's got everything from, who's organising marshals, who's organising the volunteers, who's doing the funding applications, who's doing the prizes, all of these things that people don't think about from an event point of view, and how much these things cost to run now. Like the cost of running events, has skyrocketed, and particularly with traffic management, but we won't go into that. But the cost of running events now is astronomical. That's why a whole bunch of events don't go ahead, have run their day. So when events like the Cape to Cape and Dwelling Up 100 are really thriving, they're doing really good things in the event space with really good people doing it.
Absolutely. I have spoken to a few people who organise events, and the challenges of actually making sure everything gets done, depending on where they are in the event coordinating spectrum. When you think about the likes of Dave Budge and Bill Hayes are probably at the top of that scale, through to people who are doing club events and that sort of thing. Having those guides, like you put together the checklist, they can look overwhelming.
Yeah, but I mean, you have a look at Bill, the Event Matrix ran Road National Champs earlier in the year in January around Bold Park and then Kings Park and in Northbridge. So, and just massive undertaking of closing roads, closing streets. Dave and his crew just ran the HBF Run for a Reason. And, when you're talking 30 and 40,000 people at an event, there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of things can go wrong, and it takes a lot of people to run those events. So even with Dwelling Up, we've got 20 odd people just to run the Dwelling Up 100 just as one day, and obviously we have the trail run at the same time, the Mighty Jarrah Trail Run, which was that was one of Dave's ideas, and that's absolutely thriving. There's a little bit of a thing now as to, is the trail run going to get more numbers, or is the mountain bike ride going to get more numbers? So, because trail running is on an absolute boom at the moment as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The trail running and running in general actually is really really taken off. Are there any other aspects, Tony, of what you do that we haven't talked about?
I'm involved in quite a few different things. Like you come from a motorsports background. I'm a mechanic by trade, and then I had my own workshop for a long while, and I was involved in crewing on a speed car. And then I was fortunate enough to get a drive in a speed car, and then that evolved from one thing led to another, and we sort of putting everything into that. So I raced a speed car for 6 years, and then sold that just before Claremont Speedway closed down. And basically, I'm back helping my good old mate Graham Jones, and we still crew on his race car now. Although he doesn't drive it anymore, he puts drivers in the car. So that's really good, and work with another really good mate of mine, Scotty Tolkien. We've worked on that car now for forever, basically. Like 40 odd years since, I guess, from when we first started. So I'm 61 this year, and I reckon I was 21 when I was introduced to that when I moved to Perth. So 40 years on and off of race cars, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Speedway's a pretty big thing too. They've got getting some quite good fields.
Oh, massive. And it's like the Motorplex, for people who haven't been in the Motorplex, it's like when the Americans come here for the World Series, what they call high limits now, and I think it's $120,000 prize money for high limits this next coming season. When they come here, they go, this is a world-class facility, like world-class, for wherever they run. And so they're the sprint cars with the big wings on them, so we run the ones just under them without the wing. And so we get to race like on the same nights that they're here. It's a pretty impressive show.
So, Tony, if someone want to get into the sphere of designing mountain bike courses, how would they go about it?
I think the first big thing is that you have to have a real passion for it, and you have to know. That's why, to be honest, it's why I put that little checklist together. And like for an event like Dwelling Up 100, that 3 pages I mentioned for Perth Mountain Bike Club, that'd be like I tried to keep it at dot points, but it would still be like a 10-page document for all the things that you've got to do for something like Dwelling Up 100. But even as a small event like Perth Mountain Bike Club, where we're only running a 4 to 6 kilometre course, you still are trying to encourage people to come in and do that. But the truth is, your question is a difficult one because the people aren't there who really want to do it. As much as we'd like to say, oh yeah, come in, just design a course, put it together, mark it out. It's just the people aren't lining up to do that is the hard thing. We've got a great crew for Cape to Cape. It's because we've got 4 stages with Cape to Cape. And in fact, one of the guys from down that Margaret River area, Michael Brooks, he comes and helps us with Dwelling Up now as well. But he'll look after stage 1, so he looks after the Augusta stage. I look after the Nannup stage, which we've changed for Cape to Cape. We go out to Nannup now. And look, interestingly, that was brought about when Bill said to me, what do we need to do to freshen up Cape to Cape? And I said, well, we need to get another proper mountain bike stage into it. And I said, I think we should go to Nannup. And he goes, oh, that's too far to go. And I said, well, look, we went and did this event. This is 3 years ago when we did the first Volcanic Epic. Anyway, we went and did that. And on 2 different days, one day we had to drive 50 minutes and another day we had to drive an hour. And I said to Bill, look, we've been and done the Volcanic and you have to drive a decent amount of time to get to these other stages. And I said, honestly, it was kind of part of the adventure. So to drive 50 minutes from Margaret River to Nannup, in my opinion, wasn't a big deal. And so anyway, to Bill and Megan's credit, they put the Nannup stage in Cape to Cape and it's turned out to be really popular. So we've 2 different courses together there and we've tweaked the course again for this coming year. And then we moved from Nannup to Margaret River, and then we've got another really good guy, Nils Johnson from the Margaret River area. He looks after the Margaret River stage. And then we go up to Dunsborough for day 4, and we've got Graham Clark in Dunsborough from Bike Shed Dunsborough, and he looks after the stage 4 up in the Dunsborough area. And so we got three really good guys down there. But once again, going back to your question, there's not a lot of other people lining up who want to actually put the effort into, or put the effort towards what's required to put on a good course. So it's quite difficult. It's quite difficult finding new people or people who want to, go hook, line and sinker into doing it.
Yes, and I guess the best way to start would be at one of the smaller events.
100%. Yep. And that's exactly where we come back to, like the Perth Mountain Bike Club. And great atmosphere, smaller fields, smaller course, easier to do, easier to put on. Typically club run, so you don't have a lot of the fees and application fees that are required as well. So yeah, it's and once again, really good fun. You can put some great courses together. We've got some great venues that we do around WA. In fact, interestingly, next year, and I know you said that you were part of DFES at one point. So the World Police and Firefighter Games are coming to Perth in March 2027. And so we're putting a course together for them down in Dwellingup for their marathon, for their cross-country XCM, cross-country marathon. And good mate of mine who's station officer up at Butler, Mark Papadopoulos, he's responsible for the Joondalup mountain bike park. So he was the one who put all the effort into getting the Joondalup mountain bike park there. And he's putting a XCO race together for the World Police and Firefighter Games there in March as well.
So 2 big events in amongst the World Police and Firefighter Games. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, they've also got a road race around Kings Park that pretty sure Bill is going to be involved in, and they've also got a time trial as well. So there's maybe a criterium. Anyway, there's 4 or 5 cycling events as part of the World Police Firefighter Games in March 2027.
Oh, that'll be fantastic spectating as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because the competition, I think, is only open to those competitors who are eligible to enter, I guess.
I think even if you're an ex-firefighter or ex-police officer, you can still enter, I'm pretty sure.
Well, thank you very much, Tony, for being on Forest.chat. And all our Forest.chat listeners wish you all the best with your future course designing.
Thank you very much. We get back from Canberra tonight and then straight back into Dwellingup 100 stuff. So yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
And I hope the weather we've been having over here hasn't done too much damage to your course maintenance.
That's actually an interesting point, because you actually have to be careful not to do too much too soon, because you know that can actually happen.
Hopefully that's all blown away for you. That'll be fantastic.
Paul, thanks very much. Thanks for the invite. Great to chat to you.
Thank you. You've been listening to Forest.chat, where we talk about individual endeavour in Western Australia, what it takes, what it means, and how you do it. I'm your host, Paul Vandermeer, and in today's episode we've been talking with Tony Tucknott about designing mountain bike courses. Remember, there are 4 ways to get involved with Forest.chat. Share the domain Forest.chat with your friends and family and people you meet. When you sign up for episodes, you get early advice of the episodes. Listen to the episodes at forest.chat/episodes. If you do something interesting or that other people may find interesting, book an interview at forest.chat/interview. If you want to support a small business, book an advert at forest.chat/advert. I'm looking forward to joining you with our next guest. Until then, enjoy making it happen.